The Like a Dragon or Yakuza game series is in a bit of a turmoil right now for its fan base, for multiple reasons, from recent remasters or remakes and director's cuts and other situations, what have you. But here, me, Mister TDF Films, let's bring some positivity, because even if you're on the internet, you can always just disconnect and realize why you really love a series that you love. In this case, I love the Like a Dragon series. But I recently played a hidden gem. It's not quite unknown, maybe you know it. It's called Fist of the North Star Lost to Paradise, based on, well, the Fist of the North Star manga and anime series all the way back from the 80s. A series that I'm sure was picked because the guys at RGG, well, I'm sure they grew up reading and watching the Fist of the North Star mangas and animes and the movies. So with that in mind, I can definitely see why this, of all franchises, was picked as a collaboration, because these guys, these developers, have an intense connection, a lifelong love, a nostalgia for the series of a character who can share out his journey, very classic and noble, a very different kind of protagonist, but one that's easy to grasp onto for his noble nature, much like Kiryu himself. Case in point, well, they share the same voice actor here. Suffice to say, this is a Yakuza game through and through. But it's more than just a coat of paint of a franchise, it's a collaboration, and it's one that takes assets from the Yakuza games and really spins it in a wonderfully new light that I found phenomenally fun. Yeah, it's a violent game, it's really manly, and I adore it. I can say I'm now a fan of Fist of the North Star. Basically, Kenshiro is Kiryu through and through. He's voiced by Takeya Kuroda and is welcomed by a host of other mainstay Like a Dragon voice actors. I'll just say which characters you'll know and who they play. For instance, Yuria is played by Sayama, Rawa was played by the GOAT, Ryuji Goda, Toki's Kashiwagi, Jagi's Majima, Jagger, he's actually Yuya, and Zana's Makoto, Rei is Shinada, Ari is both the T-set member Mai and Sayadate, Ryaku is Date himself, Targa is Jungi-han, Nadai is Sudo, Saito, and the Christina guy, Bat is Taichi, Rin is Haruka, the narrator is Akiyama, Shin is both Ichiban and Nishiki, and the big beefy guy, Yuger, may I mispronounce that, it's Shimano or Nakajima, and then that menace guy with the organs on the other side of his body, the Holy Emperor, Thouser, may I mispronounce that, he's Morinaga. So suffice to say, this is a gigantic cast with a lot of familiar voices, and some voices that I didn't even recognize because they really put their own spin in portraying these characters. Characters are both from the manga and some new additions from my understanding that are only unique to Lost Paradise. With all that in mind, right, clearly it's a big ensemble cast, and the way the story goes, it's kind of like Yakuza 2, the way it ended, if you know, you know. But all in all, the story is great, I really loved it, it's easy to understand going into it, but why am I really talking about this game, huh? Is it because I'm a fan of Fist of the North Star now, or is it because it's another Yakuza game of its own unique spin to fit the franchise it's portraying? Well, it's not just that, it's because I genuinely think that this is a hidden gem, a lost paradise of Eden, if you will, in the series, and amidst all the recent, rather toxicity and negativity on the fan base and other outlets of Like a Dragon, I gotta say, Fist of the North Star is another reason why I love this series through and through. It captures that balance of violence and goofiness, serious stories, and loving care. I mean, for Pete's sake, I'm not going to talk about a lot of spoilers, but Fist of the North Star is the only game in RGG's catalog, from my understanding, that is about saving the world, actually, by the end. I haven't played Binary Domain, but I think Fist of the North Star takes the cake for having those stakes. And it's especially adapt and making you feel for these characters, and in typical RGG fashion. Again, this is a video game, so you're not going to get a bunch of scenes for every character. It's mostly about when they do show up is where they get their chance to shine as characters and leave an impression, and that they do, right? Like when you fight Jaggy in the story, he has not only an interesting first-person perspective for the first half of his boss fight, but also has an interesting little sort of puzzle mini-game where you have to find who's the real Jaggy amidst these doppelgangers. And there's other weird things that really stand out, like fighting that giant Devil Rebirth guy, which of course, in typical video game fashion of the era, you get the fight him on top of a platform, and he's that boss that's so big, you only fight the upper half of his body, you know what I'm talking about, that trend in video games. And of course, the gratuitous violence that's also graceful. That's how I would describe Hokuto Shinen. It's gracefully violent and gratuitously destructive. And you really see that with Kenshiro. Yeah, he kills a bunch of guys, but he's still very noble, especially because this is a very fictionalized world. It's a wasteland, apocalyptic wasteland where, despite nuclear war, the strongest weapons you can have is your fist and your martial arts technique, utilizing the different abilities of chi in your body and where to displace that energy to disperse it. And that's how I describe Kenshiro. He's very noble, he's wise, and even without ever really needing any good context on what his fighting style, like where it's based from or who his master was, you don't really need that here in the game. You just need to know that he's a guy who's got powerful techniques. He can match what he says, his words of his mouth, and he can really push evil back. Because like I said, this is an apocalyptic wasteland, so we're not dealing with just normal thugs, not even normal bandits. These are real monstrous guys that are horrible, and they can think they can get away with anything. Like, if you look at that scene where Kenshiro's in the prison and he has a recollection on his journeys throughout the wasteland, which I'm sure is maybe referencing some other of his adventures in the original manga series, you get to see what kind of man he is, looking out for the little guy. He's Kiryu on steroids, pretty much. But of course, Kenshiro existed long before Kiryu was ever created, and I can see why a guy like Kenshiro is the archetype of that samurai lone warrior going about his journey, taking down guys in a cruel, lawless world. And this whole story of him wanting to find Yuria is endearing, and as one that I was really invested in because it's an easy story that lets other characters jump into it, including some guys who pop in that I'm sure are from the manga, different bosses that don't really pertain to the overall story but are important to the franchise, and I really like that. I think all in all, the way RGG was able to spin the story to get me invested in a franchise I don't really know a lot of, besides the Omarya One Shinderu meme, was a grand achievement. And the open world is a hit or miss depending on how you like your open worlds in these games, but I liked it for what it was. I think Eden could have used some more shops, and the wasteland is actually pretty big, so there's definitely a lot of gameplay content here for you to explore with the buggy and other mini-games. And games like Dr. Ken or Bartender Ken, Hostess Manager Ken were a lot of fun, and a nice spin on classic Yakuza staples you've come to know and love, while having their own goofiness that makes sense for Kenshiro as well. Kenshiro. I think it was nice that Yuya's voice actor got a lot of a spotlight here, playing Captain Jagger of the Watchmen, with his, shotgun pistol thing and his mohawk, and he was a lot of fun to explore. And the twist villain, I won't spoil who it is, but he's a guy you really want to beat up to, if you know. And then you have Lord Nadai, who is a really mysterious character, but I like the way he played out. Again, a lot of the stuff in this plot is, I wouldn't say predictable, but like if you're expecting some plot twists, and if you look at the catalog of villains in the cast from Kenshiro's other brothers, so Hokuto, to any other villains that spawn in from the Army of Ruin or the Imperial Army and what have you, you can kind of see what the story's going with. There are some nice twists, I would say, and the long battles are honestly few and far between. There's not a lot of long battles in this game, but in terms of set pieces, there's lots of fights, of course, but in terms of big set pieces, only a few long battles, but they do all deliver, and they definitely stand out. And I know guys from the other Yakuza YouTubers like Devil Leon and Froob and Gokudoni don't really like the grinding part of this game. I saw that from their live stream. But I will say, if you see the footage I have here today, I was battling as almost 15 to 20 levels below what I should have been fighting these bosses and goons. They can do a lot of damage, but that wasn't a problem for Mr. Tiger Films, right? If Kenshiro's a master of Hokuto, then I'm a master of chucklefuckery. And, I don't really mind being outmatched in a fight. I only really did the sub-stories I had to do in the main story, and I did some scavenging, but like I said, all I did was really get the upgrades, health, damage, and some cool skills, improving burst mode, and doing the training of Master Toki. But all in all, I didn't grind out every fighting ability, I didn't get every gear I needed, I only got what I had, and I was always rather underpowered. and the healing items in this game aren't the best in the series, unless you know where to find them. But yeah, like even when it came to the final boss of the game, I had no heals left, and I only had so many Destiny talismans. But I managed to make it work out, right? Look at this fight where I fight the masked guy Kyo. That's just one boss fight, random boss fight in the game. You know, but all the footage, whether it's fight with Rao, so on and so forth, I was very underpowered. Maybe not very, but I wasn't up to snuff on what I should have been, but I still managed to make it work by being a bit cheeky, you know? And, you know, Kenshiro, I really like him. He's a goddamn badass. So, since I liked him as a character and the world he inhabited, I didn't mind fighting underpowered and having some fun with it, right? I play all these games on the hard difficulty. I managed to persevere despite being rather underpowered, and, you know, there is some jank in the game every now and then, but I really like the way they use the heat system in the form of the burst system, because, much like of Kiryu in Yakuza 5 and 6, having this extreme heat mode of R2 actually works here, and it feels distinct. And of course, with this being Kenshiro, he can, you know, murder the hell out of all these freaks, and it's very satisfying. And yeah, I'm glad that his burst mode, for it being an extreme heat mode, actually has some distinct abilities to it. And it isn't just, you know, a free get out of jail card that gives you extreme damage. I mean, it does that, but actually gives some additional gameplay features that feels worthwhile. That's what I'm getting at. So in all, you know, I haven't really talked about everything in this game, of course. I'm just, I don't, you can find other channels that can do that, but if you want to have some positivity, right? If you want to find another Yakuza game that really is, for all intents and purposes, Fists of the North Star, Lost Paradise was the last hurrah. It really was the last hurrah for the classic Yakuza engines, you know? Like, this game came out when the Dragon engine already had, like, 3 games underneath its belt, but here we have Fists of the North Star, a game more similar to Yakuza 5, Zero, and Ishin, and Kiwami, that classic era where, you know, you enter a shop and there's a fixed camera, and what have you, things like that, right? The classic system's in place, and it works here, it feels fresh. So if you really want classic Like a Dragon experience that is going to get you, hopefully, into this wonderful Fists of the North Star franchise, I think this is a good gateway point. And it has a lot of the classic Yakuza-isms that, if you're missing them, you're going to find them here. Just be warned that this game can be challenging, but, you know, if I could beat it on hard difficulty with some challenge and, you know, not having all the skills, that I'm sure you could too, my dear viewers. You guys are goddamn badasses. You guys are. I think you would really enjoy Fists of the North Star if you haven't already. And if I couldn't sell you on that enough, well, this is, like I said, a last hurrah for that era of Yakuza, the classic engine. And all in all, I think that if you're dissatisfied with the recent turn of events of the games, or you just, you know, maybe you don't care about that at all, you just want to play another Yakuza game that's kind of hidden, then I suggest you check out Fists of the North Star. I think you're gonna love it. And it's a shorter game, to be honest. Yeah, there's a lot of annoying backtracking of going to point A and point B, but all in all, I think that if you're really wanting a fun game with beautiful art style, a distinct identity, and something to say, right? Because this game, it's really low-key, but also at the same time, you're getting to save the world. So, yeah, if that sounds up your alley, a more classic beat-em-up game with some awesome animations, style, and might add, being one of the few RGG games where you can actually change your outfit during the story, then yeah, you know what, this game is for you. If you want to have some fun, some crazy fights, and hearing some voices that you adore, some wonderful voice actors putting their spin on this franchise, then I suggest you pick up Lost Paradise. It's almost always on sale for $5 on the PlayStation Store. I'm sure it's even more on sale on Steam and Xbox and whatnot. But alas, I've been Mr. Tackerdrop Films. This is more of a quick video, but I just had to gush about this very manly and goofy game that I really like. I think this might be close to my top 5 now, in terms of RGG output. So, I've been Mr. Tackerdrop Films. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this game, Fists of the North Star. Did it make you become a fan? Were you already a fan of it? And did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to check out my Tanamura Files and Style to Show web series on my channel, and my other video essays for all things Like a Dragon and pop culture alike. Until next time, keep tiger dropping, and I'll see you in the wasteland. Mister TDF out.